thousands of Native American children were taken from their families and forced into boarding schools run by the U.S. government. The purpose was to eliminate the hundreds of cultures indigenous to the U.S. The program lasted up until 1969.
While I might have received an education, or a white man's education, I lost my own language, my own culture, my traditions.
As I lost my own language, my own culture, my traditions.
Survivors have also talked about the physical and sexual abuse they suffered at these schools.
My lower back was bruised, and it hurt to the touch after being hit with the paddle, referred to as the Board of Education. Those bruises healed. The emotional bruises, I'm still working on.
There's an ongoing federal investigation into these schools. So far, they have identified over 400 in the U.S. More than 50 of those have burial sites where the remains of children who died there have been found. 500 deaths have been accounted for so far, but investigators expect that number to be in the tens of thousands. Tens of thousands of Native American children were taken from...
My father working at the Mesa Verde, way out there, Mesa Verde. He put us in boarding school, enrolled us.
In boarding school, where?
Shipwreck right there.
It was like English boarding school?
Yeah, they had a boarding school for boys and girls.
He wanted you to go to school?
Yes.
How did you feel going to school instead of sheep herding?
Well, my mom said she understands English. Then she can read us a book.
Your mom said that?
Yes.
Oh. You grew up speaking Navajo though, right?
Yes, and English. And you know what? I always sing church songs.
Always sing church songs? You're a very religious person?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I like. That's how we dance. We move around. Move. We want to be Indians, pretend to be Indians or cowboys. We did that because they were cool. The way they moved. We want to be Indians, pretend to be Indians or cowboys.
Pictures over there. We got a lot of relatives in Russia right now, still, to this day. Just right over that waterway. When I was a younger kid in the 90s, they would always come by boat. Yeah. They would stay for at least 2 weeks or so, just celebrating with us. Right now, I guess it's kind of hard to get out here.
So you guys don't see any boundary really between the countries because those are your people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we actually have like the same clansmen over there.
Oh.
As on the island.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there much of a hierarchy these days?
Can anybody answer this? Why does us Indians, out of all the people in the whole world,
United States for sure.
United States for sure, can anybody answer why we got to get registered like dogs to prove who we are? Can anybody answer that question? We got to get registered. She's got to get registered. She does. All us Indians. Can anybody?
I want the people to know the truth about the Navajos and what they're trying to do to my people. Even back then, the Navajo nations are friends and allies with American government. And they're not the true Hopi people, native peoples on this continent. They're just a mixture of the Eskimos or they came down from the north, the Bering Strait. They came down from the north, the Bering Strait. They came down from the north, the Bering Strait. And they came in, scavenged off the tribes that were already here. The tribes that were already here. The tribes that were already here.
Scientifically proven that Native Americans come from Siberia. Since the 18th century, ethnographers and archaeologists have been arguing that there are strong cultural and ethnic similarities between Native Americans and the people of Siberia. So what are those similarities? Well, first of all, appearance and clothes. Apparently, Siberians and Native Americans even look alike. Distinctive cheekbones, an upright posture, and dusky skin. In the 19th century, famous explorer Fridtjof Nansen called Evenks, the indigenous people of eastern Siberia, the Indians of Siberia. Both Siberians and Native Americans dressed themselves in clothes made of deer skin, which makes sense, with deer the main breeding cattle. But what is striking is how similar the ornaments and types of embroidery used to decorate their clothing was. Next, religion and beliefs. Shamanism, belief in the afterlife, and the power of spirits are prevalent for both cultures. Even skin tambourines are used by both Siberian and Indian shamans. In both cultures, they worship the spirit of fire and believe in the world tree as the main pillar of existence. Low-alcoholic beverages feature in ceremonies, and while the drinks differ, corned beer for Indians and milk vodka for Siberians, the ritual stays the same. All gather in a circle and drink from one cup, passing it on to the next. Both Siberians and Indians used tattoos as spiritual signs. Their houses looked alike too. Teepees and chums were go-to structures for both Siberians and Native Americans. And then the language. A connection exists between Siberian and Native American languages. In early 18th century, German naturalist Georg Steller, who traveled to Kamchatka and then to North America, argued that either the people of Kamchatka and North America communicated somehow with each other, or Native Americans are the same people as Kamchadals or are somehow derived from them. After more than a century of speculation, geneticists have proven that Aztecs, Incas, and Iroquois are closely related to the people of Altai, the Siberian region that borders China and Mongolia. Listen to this. Fearless nomadic hunters with strong tribal traditions who believe in the powers of nature and honor spirits of the deceased. This stands true for both native Siberians and Native Americans. Here's some more evidence for you. In 2008, it was confirmed that the language family of Central Siberia shares a mother tongue with dozens of Native American languages. Researcher Edward Vajda spent several years in Siberia studying the almost forgotten Ket language. His research links the Russian Yeniseian family of extinct languages to the Nadene family of languages spoken by the broad group of present-day Athabascan tribes in the US and Canada. Other evidence is based on genetics and archaeological finds. A skeleton of a 4-year-old boy found in South Siberia in the late 1920s led to a fascinating discovery in 2013. These were the oldest human remains from which DNA was extracted. A genetic study of a 24,000-year-old skeleton housed in the Hermitage State Museum in St. Petersburg showed that the boy's DNA had close genetic ties to the DNA of present-day Native Americans. It shows that they carried up to 38% of the genes of the Altai people. But it's not the first archaeological find that suggests that Native Americans and Siberians are related. Let's go back to the 1960s. Soviet historian Nikolai Dikov had found 15,000-year-old human remains in Kamchatka, a region in Russia's Far East. The tomb was unusual for the region. The skeleton was covered in red ochre, just like in the burial traditions of the North American natives. This had led Dikov to believe that ancestors of Native Americans migrated from Siberia. Also, in 2013, two of the world's leading scientific magazines, Nature and Science, published articles about the analysis of whole genomes in Native Americans and their Siberian cousins. The first study analyzed 48 people from Brazil. The second study analyzed 31 genomes from people in the US and Siberia, and the results from both studies confirmed that the ancestors of Native Americans left Siberia about 20 to 30,000 years ago.
If Y chromosomes all come from Asia, and mitochondrial genomes all come from Asia, then the only explanation for where all the rest of the chromosomes come from is Asia. That is a very scientifically valid explanation. It's the only explanation. In excess of 150 tribes have been tested now, and these are scattered all over North and Central and South America, even to Greenland. And from that survey, in excess of 5,500 individuals have been involved and been tested. From those 5,500, 99.4% of Native Americans have a mitochondrial DNA lineage that originated in Asia. There can be no question. 99.4%. The other 0.6% have either a European or an African mitochondrial lineage. A very tiny minority of African and European lineages that they do find.
Native Americans originally descended from a cave in Yunnan, China. Does that mean that the first Americans were Chinese?
You could look like a little Inuit boy, specifically from like Alaska. And then it kind of made me think about like the collaborations that we have between Native Americans and Asians. Hey man, I don't give a damn. They could have came straight from Beijing 10 years ago. We came over here, we won. This is our land. I don't care if they came from Indonesia, Borneo. Y'all don't know nothing. We came and we won. We won the game.
Vietnamese were the first Americans.
Yo.
I mean, that's a new theory.
Hey.
lot of blacks don't know that they are Indians. And
Why don't they know?
well, they've been told that they're African American and that they came from Africa, but that they're really been here in the United States as Indians.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And they're really just been given false information from the historical point of view.
They're the same people.
On this
One just
slide,
has a political
and-
status.
Who's Native American? Just pair up with someone sitting next to you. It's not a trick question, by the way. What'd you say?
I said B.
You said C? Yeah? Did you say B? C?
I'd say B.
You'd say B? Okay, well the answer is A, by the way. Which one's of Native American ancestry and which one is of Han Chinese ancestry? Top one is Chinese?
Yeah.
Dude, killing it. All right, but you're wrong. Siberia is part of Russia, and they're really Siberian. And Russia is a European country, and so you could argue that all those folks are European because they're Russian. Got it? You see how, like, the complexity of this? So, but what are they really? And how are they any different? Their DNA is exactly...
If your ancestors played a part in literally knowing what's going on, what was taken away from us, and the scheme, and how it was called the Indian Land Act and now it's the Civil Rights Act, why would I expect you to come on my channel and say, yeah, you're right? I expect you to say, no, we're wrong. We expect you to keep saying we don't know what we're talking about because you're trying to protect what you guys have been protecting, which is land that was not yours, identity which was not yours. It is what it is. I don't know why y'all keep coming on here saying wrong. We know. We also know that it's a bunch of YT people sitting up there on these tribe lands that's taking over, aren't they? Making all the rules, aren't they? So why would we listen to you? Every time you come on here and say, no, we're wrong, we prove with documentation that, no, you're wrong. You know what you're doing. Your ancestors knew what they were doing, and we're not going to stop talking about it. And that's on our ancestors. You're not going to shut us up, so get over it.
The Californians, therefore, he calls Malays. So he's comparing these people with the Malays again. And he continues, and the inhabitants of Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Washington, and Oregon, he classifies as Mongolians. So they're a little different, he's saying, right? The Native Americans are very, very ancient. They go back even to when they're fauna and flora, right? The species that were aboriginal to the land as well. They go that far back with the species, the plant life and the animals. They classify all the tribes of America, exceeding only the Eskimos who wandered over from Asia as the American race and divided into the American family and the Toltecan family. Toltecan, the son of Issachar, Tol. So again, I just want to emphasize what they just said. It says they classify all the tribes of America, excepting only the Eskimos, who wandered over from Asia. And that's what we've been trying to explain to everybody. That most of the so-called Native Americans of today in the reservations are these Asians he is talking about that crossed over from Asia. Mongoloid stock. Blumenbach classifies the Americans as a distinct species. The American Mongolidae of Dr. Latham are divided into Eskimos and American Indians. Dr. Morton perceives the same characteristic lineaments in the face of the Fuegian and the Mexican. The Fuegian,
And the title today, we will be discussing how Asian slaves became Indians. I'm going to go into depth about how Chinos became reclassified as Indians or indigenous people. Moreover, while indigenous people were reclassified as African and Negroes, Chino slaves were allowed to obtain an indigenous identity and status. The main source of information used for this discussion will be from the book Asian Slaves in Colonial Mexico, From Chinos to Indians by Tatiana Sayas. What's interesting here is that the subject of Asian slaves in Spanish America is not discussed or widely known. In fact, in Tatiana Sayas' book, she states that her book is the first that traces Chino origins in Asia. My goal in this particular episode is to touch on key points which is not readily known to the public. All right. After parts of Asia were conquered by the Spanish crown, Asian people were put into slavery on their own land and later on shipped to places such as Mexico, Peru, and Chile. In other words, they were shipped to Spanish-controlled colonies in America. Now, this is a quote from the book, Asian Slaves in Colonial Mexico. Quote, "The foundation of the Spanish Philippines gave rise to the trans-Pacific slave trade. Manila became the colonial outpost in Asia where slaves were purchased and the Manila galleon ships afforded transport to Mexico. Manila was a slave society during the 17th century. Slaves did the majority of the labor, and master-slave relations shaped the general social order. Within years after the Spanish conquest, the bustling port city had some 40,000 residents of diverse origins. A full quarter of this population was enslaved. They were craftspeople, manual laborers, and servants who upheld their master's social structure. By the 1620s, the city had 8,000 indigenous slaves and 2,000 foreign slaves, in addition to an untold number of Muslim slaves. The whole of the city was a slave market, supplying labor to Spanish colonists and indigenous elites. Slave auctions were held in the plazas found within the city walls, and masters also sold slaves through individual transactions. The unorganized nature of the market makes it nearly impossible to quantify the volume of slaves, but it is clear that Manila was an emporium for slaves. Masters from throughout the Philippines knew to come to the capital to secure chattel property. Now, these slaves were from diverse places, and they were called Chino slaves. And they came from places such as Philippines, India, Bengal, Indonesia, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Japan, China, and other places. Now, once in Mexico, all of these people became Chino slaves. Now, here is a backstory of what took place in the Philippines. And what took place in the Philippines also mirrors what took place in America when both empires, the Philippines and America, fell to the Spanish crown. I'm going to read a page from the book Asian Slaves in Colonial Mexico, and it's from page 46. Okay.
I represent a group of concerned citizens who are very upset about this protest you're spearheading, no puns intended.
Who do you represent?
Italians, here in New Jersey. Good people. Family people. And they've asked me to tell you that it's really not in your best interest to go through with this fucking thing.
Well, if you come here to intimidate me, you don't know much about Indian Resolve.
Dale, should I call security?
You remember this guy?
Arnaiz Cody, he was an actor in the movies.
Son of Paleface, Sitting Bull. You're a fucking poster boy. Part Cherokee, part Cree. Wasn't even a fucking Indian. Second generation Sicilian from Louisiana named Espira Ducote.
Well, I think you better leave now.
Guy's a total fucking phony. Total fugazi. Even Jay Silverheels knew it. But he kept it quiet. Well, We're not gonna. You keep up your bullshit. We're gonna go wide with this thing.
Knock yourself out.
Take it away.
DNA analysis review with you.
Really?
Yeah, because there's been an update.
Uh-huh.
Mine's been updated. So see, mine is 50, or it's actually 52.6 Native American.
Yeah.
But then, check it out, I'm 16% Mongolian.
Must be from your dad's side.
You'll see. Yeah, so that's my composition. Then you gotta go to DNA relatives. And this is where they'll have yours at. So did you think that about me? That I gotta be Mongolian or something?
No, I didn't think it'd be that.
So here's yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's 51.71% DNA shared. So I have more of your DNA than my dad's.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. Our ancestry composition.
Mm-hmm.
So here's you and me. So like I'm 82.6 Native American and you're 89.2. So, but it says you're 57.2% Native American and you're 16.3% Mongolian.
Oh.
You have the Mongolian ancestry.
Mongolian, is that with Asian?
Yeah, it's over up in the Himalayan mountains.
Oh.
Then again, I think that's what. So yours would probably go up if it's 13.5, which would make you about 70%, 71%.
Now, why you look like that?
Cause you weird, man. This is my you weird. Say bye to this lady, man. You're Asian, right?
You are now cursed.
You weird as hell, man.
I just think like you should have known better, you know?
Oh man, I know better. I know better.
I don't care how long it takes. No. What's the lyrics, you guys? What's the lyrics?
I don't know what's wrong with you. You're not getting it. Look at me. You're not getting it, nephew. You gotta sing it like this. With passion. Like that. Can you do it like that? Like you're crying for the people. You do it.
we've been taught in the American education system is all a lie. Yes, Native Americans weren't the original people of this land. We actually took it from black people. We were so good at it that we just wiped out any trace of their language.
Aborigines. Here go a Mexican right here saying that Mexicans come from black people. Watch.
Hey, did you know that us Mexicans are the most mixed race of them all? We literally come from blacks, white, and Chinese. How do we all come from all those races? You gotta understand that the first people on this land were blacks, right? And then the whites came, mixed it up with them, and then the Chinese came and mixed it up with them. So a light skin having babies with the Chinese makes us, bro. That's why I feel like I get along with everybody, bro, every race. And there's no point in hating on us, bro, because there's a little bit of you and us, and there's a little bit of us and you. So, and that's why Mexicans come in all shades of colors, bro. You might see someone darker than you, or you might see someone white like Canelo, bro. And you might see someone Asian, but that's really Mexican, bro. We just call them Chino.
By the way, Native Americans, you know this famous, infamous problem with metabolizing alcohol, okay, with Native Americans. You know who else has that problem? The Chinese.
They do?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
So it's an Asian issue.
Well, so who stayed in so you look at who populated North and South America after the, before the land bridge. It's whoever was right at the edge of Asia.
Right.
Then the land bridges. So Asians and North American and the natives of North and South America have more in common with each other because of this than most other pairs of groups you might grab around the world.
The Native Americans are Asians. They were here first according to science, through migration about 13,000 years ago. Christopher Columbus was trying to find a water route from Europe to Asia, so any of the cargo was intended for Asia. Now, if the East Asians populated the North Americas and South Americas about 13,000 years ago, why would Christopher Columbus war with the same nation it's trading with? This changes the context of certain documentation, organizations, and acts of Congress. For example, the Albany Congress, the Articles of Confederation and the Perpetual Union, and the now Constitution of the United States. Because you see, American history would technically be Asian history. And everything the United States is founded upon and doing is to perpetuate the culture of the original migration. And to explain it as simply as I possibly can, if Christopher Columbus's original expedition was to find a water route from Europe to Asia, that would already mean a trade relationship. Therefore, any quote-unquote accidental discoveries of an area that is populated with the same people that you're trading with doesn't really make any sense. Now, for the Native Americans, meaning the Asians, to give up land to the Europeans would be in the form of a lease. So the United States is leased to Europe by Asia.
Where they really come from. Exposed. Do the ancestors of Native Americans not come from Israel, but we know where they in fact came from, and that's from the northern part of East Asia.
The people that we can identify today as Native Americans, the people that we can pull DNA from, their genetic markers are more closely related to people from Siberia.
The evidence acceptable to most archaeologists and physical anthropologists, both from dental traits and from mitochondrial DNA, is that the origin of people in North, Central, and South America before the coming of the Europeans in 1492 was North Asia.
This is a very large field of study now, where there are dozens of researchers who've worked in over 6 dozen Native American communities, investigating thousands of individuals. And the genetic data from every single one of those studies is telling us the same thing. That is, that the people came from, the American Indians came from north part of East Asia.
The DNA data indicate the closest affinities of contemporary Native American populations are with populations in East Asia and Central Asia.
The homeland of Native Americans
is East Asia.
The genetic evidence shows that the American Indian came from Asia.
If Y chromosomes all come from Asia, and mitochondrial genomes all come from Asia, then the only explanation for where all the rest of the chromosomes come from is Asia. That is a very scientifically valid explanation. It's the only explanation. In excess of 150 tribes have been tested now, and these are scattered all over North and Central and South America, even into Greenland. And from that survey, in excess of 5,500 individuals have been involved and been tested. From those 5,500, 99.4% of Native Americans have a mitochondrial DNA lineage that originated in Asia. There can be no question. 99.4%. The other 0.6% have either a European or an African mitochondrial lineage. A very tiny minority of African and European lineages that they do find came after Columbus.
In living Native Americans' DNA, there will inevitably be a few individuals, even in the most remote Native communities, that have had some intermarriage with Europeans or Africans, and that'll show up in their DNA. But that small percentage that's there can be distinguished from the possibility of an Israelite migration to the New World by looking at the dates in which those types of lineages separated from other forms of DNA very similar to them. And so, in other words, you can identify which ones came after 1492.
DNA samples from human remains that predate 1492 are referred to as ancient DNA.
Because of the way that science has been improved, now it's gotten to where you can actually analyze the DNA of skeletons that are, 1,000 years.
All native peoples in South and North America belong to a racial type known as Mongoloid. They're descended from the ancient peoples of Siberia. During the Ice Age, 12,000 years ago, there was a land bridge between Siberia and Alaska. Mongoloid peoples were the first to enter the New World, or so experts thought. The Brazilian finds point to a very different story of the discovery of the Americas. The paintings on these rock shelters are...
Somebody come look at this. Look at this. Somebody come and look at this. Look at this.
Man.
Yo, shout out to Caesar, man. Shout out to Caesar, man.
Of running this shit. Sit your $5 ass down before I make change.
Sit down. Player again.
Go sit your $5 ass down before I make change.
A DNA analysis review with you.
Really?
Yeah, because there's been an update.
Uh-huh.
Mine's been updated. So see, mine is 50, or it's actually 52.6 Native American.
Yeah.
But then, check it out, I'm 16% Mongolian.
Must be from your dad's side.
You'll see. Yeah, so that's my composition. Then you gotta go to DNA relatives. And this is where they'll have yours at. So did you think that about me? That I gotta be Mongolian or something?
No, I didn't think it'd be that.
So here's yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's 51.71% DNA shared. So I have more of your DNA than my dad's.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. Our ancestry composition.
Mm-hmm.
So here's you and me. So I'm 82.6 Native American and you're 89.2. So But it says you're 57.2% Native American and you're 16.3% Mongolian.
Oh,
You have the Mongolian ancestry.
Mongolian. Is that with Asia?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
over up in the Himalayan mountains.
Oh.
Then again, I think that's what. So yours would probably go up if it's 13.5, which would make you about 70%.
Hasta la línea.
Hasta esta línea cubía.
Been 6 weeks and Joel, you have news?
My DNA, ¿cómo es?
DNA.
Bueno, fuck. Mi ADN está listo. Voy a ver qué tengo en la sangre.
Okay, so we're signing in.
Ya, güey.
We're signing in.
¡Oh! 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 Te lo dije.
Oh my God! No, you're not. You're less than what you thought.
No.
So here are the results, Joel. You are 40% Spanish,
Wow.
38% Portuguese,
Portuguese. Yeah, I like it.
8%
Escocés.
Scotland.
Jesus. Yo soy William Wallace. Tengo de William Wallace. Tengo un 6% de negro, te lo dije.
You know what's really fascinating? If we go over here,
Wow.
no dice nada de Cuba.
Indigenous American
Indigenous
Mexico.
Mexico.
1%?
That is really weird.
I'm very interested in how the Sutanar came to be in this place.
Well, what was told to us by our ancestors, Halukua, the old people, was that thousands of years ago, we were traveling, migrating across the ice over a disagreement in the huge camp.
So they were going across
They were
ice.
going across the ice at Slave Lake. And there was a young child that was on a grandmother's back, and there was a horn sticking out of the ice. So the child was asking for that horn, so they had stopped the migration. So they started to chip away at that ice to get that horn out. And then it cracked and split in two. So the clans that were already on the south side continued to migrate south, and the ones in the north stayed up in the north. That's what we've been told through history.
That's fascinating. It's really intriguing that this story of the first Sutinar hints at a journey across the ice. But it's how these people look that might be a more important clue. I visited a tribe in Siberia, and I think that there are some similarities between your people and those people in Siberia, and it might just be quite interesting to look at these pictures of Evenki faces. So there's an old lady and a mum and a child. Do you think these faces look similar?
The eyes are similar to the real far northern Dene up in the Yukon and that.
Yeah.
Very similar.
These almond-shaped eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. And high, wide cheekbones.
Very wide cheekbones, yeah. Prominent noses.
And it's not just facial similarities. This teepee is almost identical to the tomb of the Siberian Evenki. Could this be more evidence that the first American families came from Siberia? Or is it just coincidence? If the ancestors of the Sutinar did come from the north, they could have made it as far as Alaska. 20,000 years ago, there was a vast swathe of land, Beringia. But a huge expanse of ice still blocked the way to the rest of the Americas.
came across a land bridge, you see evidence that a land bridge did exist in the past.
In the northern parts of North America, Alaska, the Yukon, even northern British Columbia, we have a collection of some of the most ancient sites across the continent. And of course, that would be up in an area that archaeologists refer to as Beringia.
And you know, those people who made it across the land bridge, all they had were their wits and a few stone tools. And yet they managed to explore, discover, and colonize 2 continents. So that's a pretty amazing achievement in the annals of human history.
By 15,000 years ago, the rising sea levels had covered up the Beringia land bridge, and people living there either had to return to Siberia or stay in North America. The end of the last ice age set the stage for the movement of people overland into North America. The indigenous people who traveled into the continent on foot from Beringia could not have known it at the time, but they were not the first people to settle south of the ice sheets. In fact, humans had already been living in both North and South America for thousands of years before the glaciers melted and opened up routes south through the ice-free corridor.
The sites were getting younger as they went north, which is counterintuitive. You'd expect that the oldest sites would be in the north and they'd get progressively younger in the south. So it looked like people were moving north instead of south. So this has always been very paradoxical, and the only way you can explain it is that there were people already living south of the ice sheets, and where did those people come from?
I'm president of the National Native American Affirmative Image Committee.
You were also a fraud. Miss Marie Louise Cruz. I wonder how many other people are pretending to be Aboriginal to this continent. My continent.
If your ancestors played a part in literally knowing what's going on, what was taken away from us, and the scheme, and how it was called the Indian Land Act and now it's the Civil Rights Act, why would I expect you to come on my channel and say, yeah, you're right? I expect you to say, no, we're wrong. We expect you to keep saying we don't know what we're talking about, because you're trying to protect what you guys have been protecting, which is land that was not yours, identity which was not yours. It is what it is. I don't know why y'all keep coming on here saying wrong. We know. We also know that it's a bunch of YT people sitting up there on these tribe lands that's taking over, aren't they? Making all the rules, aren't they? So why would we listen to you? Every time you come on here and say, no, we're wrong, we prove with documentation that, no, you're wrong. You know what you're doing. Your ancestors knew what they were doing, and we're not going to stop talking about it. And that's on our ancestors. You're not going to shut us up, so get over it.
From Kinos to Indians.
Indigenous I have. That's like the main thing I want to know. Okay, be reported.
We don't want to kick you off on the team.
40%, 40.9% East Asian and Indigenous. I wanted 70 or 80.
Oh my gosh, I'm 71.9% European. Hey! Oh my gosh.
I am 88.7% European.
44% European.
Okay, I can see it. I was expecting more.
46.9% East Asian Indigenous American.
Okay.
Okay.
White DNA test.
Very white DNA test.
Ashkenazi Jewish, 0.8. 3.2% Congolese and Southern East African. Let's go to the car.
Gorilla in the room time. First off, all of these people had black DNA, and that is truly their only indigenous ancestry, and it's also evidence of racial whitening and the caste system that was implemented on Hispanic countries. Second, all of these people had European DNA at very high percentages, so even though you have a tan and talk trash about so-called white people as being colonizers, scientifically you're Caucasian as well. Lastly, your so-called Native American DNA is actually East Asian DNA, and is a result of the Asian expansion into the Americas in the 1500s. Let me prove that statement to you. East Asian DNA originated 36 to 25,000 years ago, and y'all got y'all about 14,000 years ago. But you got sites like this right here in South Carolina that's over 50,000 years old. So how in the fuck can y'all be the first Americans when this site predates y'all genetic origin on the planet? Make it make sense. The oldest group of Asians living in America are actually the Aleut and the Inuit Indians, the Eskimos. The rest of y'all came here on the Manila Galleon in the 1500s. Y'all took South and Central America, and the English and the French took North America. Simple as that. Asian American DNA reads the same as y'all's because y'all are the same people, but y'all were reclassified as Indians in the 1600s. Paper genocide to my people. Read this book right now. These people claiming to be Native Americans are actually descended from the colonizers. They're half-caste, quarter-caste, octoroons at best. 1/8 indigenous black American. The part of their DNA that they reject because they're probably racist, just like the colonizers that they descend from. Fun fact for the idiots, there's no such thing as Mexican DNA. There's no such thing as Spanish DNA. Mexico as a country was created in 1800. It used to be called New Spain. Spain as a country was created in 1500. So there's no such thing as Mexican DNA or Jamaican DNA or none of that. There's only 3 races, white, black, and Asian. You gotta fall in one of those 3 categories. Plus ultra.
Protected by the federal government, and the tribe who's assigned to that region then takes custody of those items. The problem with that is that a lot of these mounds, the Native people didn't build. We didn't build them. Our ancestors didn't build them. So we are taking responsibility for something that we didn't make.
The new era we are.
Okay. Did the Aztecs build this?
No.
They did not build this.
No, the Aztecs, they found it.
They found it.
600 years later.
Who built this?
This is a good question.
Okay.
Nobody knows exactly, but 80% the experts, they mention the Quichulcas guys. It was another culture.
Mm-hmm.
So Olmecs, the oldest, the mother's culture, the people in Mexico, Aztecs, Mayas, Toltecs, Zapotecs, and many more, they believe it, that Olmecs was the number one and was the
Olmecs?
That is in the coast, in Veracruz and
It's a native
Add
culture.
on to this. This study showed there's no link between us and Asia. Sorry to burst your...
I don't think you read that article properly. Let's tap into your source. Popular theory of Native American origins debunked by Genetics and Skeletal Biology. Latest scientific findings suggest the ancestral Native American population does not originate in Japan, as believed by many archaeologists. Skip on down. Widely accepted theory of Native American origins coming from Japan. We're going to skip on down. Simply does not match up. I don't make videos telling you that you come from Japan. I don't think you read this article properly, but let's dive deeper into this article because you only read just the title and that's it. The findings published today in the peer-reviewed journal Paleo America are likely to have a major impact on how we understand indigenous Americans' arrival to the Western Hemisphere. Reading comprehension. They still trying to figure out how did you come here, but they have an answer in this article. But this new study out today in Paleo America, the flagship journal of the Center for the Study of the First Americans at Texas A&M University, suggests otherwise. What do suggest mean? What do suggest mean? Let's get to my favorite part in the article that you tried to present against me. We do not dispute the idea that ancient Native Americans arrived via the Northwest Pacific coast. They literally just said in their article, we're not disputing that. We're not debunking that. We know that's factual. Only the theory that they originate with the Jomon people in Japan. So what you talking about, it has been debunked. They're just saying, no, we got to erase the notion that y'all come from Japanese people. But let's look at the next pair. These people, the Jomon, who lived in Japan 15,000 years ago, are an unlikely source for indigenous Americans. Neither the skeletal biology or the genetics indicate a connection between Japan and the Americas. The most likely source of the Native American population appears to be Siberia. Oh, it's a cut. It's a cut. How do you cut yourself with your own article that you didn't even...
Now, in that description, it said we had straight hair.
Pigmentation to detect those mutations. By chance, the light skin colored fish that I used for that research also taught us a lot about how Europeans, how humans became lighter skinned.
What Professor Chang discovered was perhaps one of the most important genetic mutations ever found. A single change among literally billions of coded instructions within zebrafish DNA that reduced black pigment from their stripes. Soon after, this identical genetic mutation was found in fair-skinned Europeans.
There was a magic moment in this research. When I got back the results that showed that the number and the size and the amount of pigment in light-skinned zebrafish were all diminished, and the same thing happened in humans. When I opened the textbook and saw that same thing, I began to sweat. Not only did light-skinned people evolve from black-skinned people, but lighter-skinned people, whether they're European or whether they're Asian, like me, were actually mutants of the dark-skinned people.
Why did y'all have to train to be Indian? Why did y'all have to go to an Indian training school if y'all weren't Indian? A lot of y'all are immigrants and migrants. Y'all not Aboriginal.
You guys are illegally squatting.
Pay attention.
You stated your name and your nationality, which is
Pay
said
attention.
that you are not from North America, which is a Mexum, okay? Turn
A Mexum.
connect the Wi-Fi services, and you can only do business here by the Treaty of Peace and Friendship.
Facts.
1786, 1787, and 1836. Look up your laws, okay? You guys can only do business here on our land per the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. And you also, I am enforcing the Constitution for the United States, 1789 and 1791. All judicial officers are bound by Article 6. You guys need
They
to
are.
pick it up, look and learn the law, okay? And you also need to pick up the United Declarations of the Indigenous right of the people. I'm sorry, I'm saying all
Indigenous
this
right of the
backwards because
people.
I'm speaking so fast because I am frustrated with you people on our land acting like you own everything and you do not. The United States Corporation is just that, a commercial company. It's not a country. It's a commercial company.
Commercial company.
Hey, you got it right. 5th time's a charm.
Is this your address? I'm enforcing. I don't have an address. I don't have an address. Look at the geographical location. I do not have an address. Addresses are part of the fictitious, fraudulent United States of America Corporation. I do not have an address. You need to follow everything on that affidavit. I am a natural living, noble, sovereign, Anawa Ihaiwi Bay, in propria persona sui juris. You need to follow everything on that document. If you don't, the military will be here to detain all of you in this building for doing business on our land as a corporate entity. It's fraud on our land, and you have been accepting Federal Reserve notes, which is also a debt, and this fraud on our land. We only accept gold and silver. Those affidavits better be followed promptly. This will be posted publicly. I, Honorable Ihaiwi Bay, this is live, letting all you guys know here. I'm leaving City Hall. Just spoke to the fictitious city county manager, Al Minor. And I left my affidavits with him.
Well, I'm sure he'll take care of those affidavits
Facts.
promptly.
He will.
I mean, he did look like he was on his way from the toilet. You know, that post-lunch squatting time. Anywho, that's all I've got for this one. Special thanks to Facts of Frauds, who was able to curate this source video. I mean, I had it, and then I lost it, and I couldn't find it again, so thank you for posting it to your channel. Be sure to check out Facts of Frauds. If you like this soft-sit, Moorish, Karen type thing, he's got more of those on his channel. Again, links...